Hi, I am Melissa Banko, and welcome to the Banko Buzz, a commercial interior design podcast. As a professional leader in our design industry, we found that there were a lot of questions that were coming to me and to us about business and growth and mentorship and really the people behind the design. So we created the Banko Buzz. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for joining us on the Banko Buzz. Hi, welcome back to our podcast, The Banko Buzz, a commercial interior design podcast. I have here with me today Sean Rosko from South City Partners, and we're going to dive right in talking about all things real estate, development, interior design, and architecture. I'm Melissa Banko. I am the principal, founder, and visionary here at Banko Design. We are a commercial boutique interior design firm specializing in senior living, multifamily, and private clubs. And we're here to talk today about innovation. We are hosting this season's podcast on our core values here at Banko Design. And we're just excited to talk to Sean and kind of hang out, hear your story. You came up when we started to think about innovation because we really do feel like what you guys are doing and what we're doing together at South City is innovative and kind of thinking outside the box. So what we're going to do to kick off the podcast today is we have a series of fun games that are bee or buzz related. So we're going to do a spelling bee today.
Yikes.
I know, because anybody who knows me knows I am an absolute terrible
spell check.
Yeah, this is going to be bad. And I like to write or type, so this is going to be really rough. But are you ready?
Sure.
You've got a buzzer in front of you. So we're going to have somebody off camera call out what our words are. I never made it to a spelling bee in school. So this is going to be my first spelling bee. So be gentle. So we're going to get a word called off camera, and we are going to buzzer if we feel like we can spell it. Whoever buzzers first gets to spell the word. Okay? All right. So first word is...
Mezzanine.
Mezzanine. Mezzanine.
That sounds right.
I don't think that's right.
You missed an N.
I missed an N. Mezzanine.
There's an N right after
Okay.
the A.
Oh, we started out really
you said
strong.
AI.
Yeah. Well.
No, it's A-N-I.
Okay.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, okay. I would have right-clicked and spell checked that.
You got it right
it.
if you were typing it.
Okay. All right. Next word is...
Encumbrance.
I'll do that.
Is it E-N-C-U-M-B-R-A-N-C-E? That is it.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay. You're already kicking my butt. This is so fun. I don't know whose idea this was. Okay. Next word is...
Escrow.
E-S-C-R-O-W. Escrow.
That is correct. Yes.
Yay! That was an easy one. All right. Next one.
Asbestos. We'll try this.
Okay.
Is it A-S-B-E-S-T-O-S? That is it.
Yeah. All right. All right. One more. We'll do one more. Wait, what was our count? We didn't even keep score. We should.
I think it's 2-2 or something, 2-1, something like that.
Okay.
I think it is 2-1.
Okay. All right. Here, pressure's on. Okay.
Delinquency. Is it D-E-L-I-N-Q-U-E-C-N-C-Y?
Yep. I'm so proud of you. You did a really great job.
I was trying to look at them in my head
it's
up
like
there.
I'm looking up. Terrible speller here. Can't be good at all the things. So thanks for playing our Banko spelling bee this morning to kick us off. Okay, so I and our listeners would love to just hear about you and your journey and how you landed at South City and what you've been up to for the last decade working there. So where you're baby Sean and you're like hanging out in high school, and what do we want to do when we're in high school? Where did you go to high school? And what were you thinking you would be?
So I'll go back a little bit further.
Okay.
I grew up, as soon as I could pick up a pencil, I was drawing houses.
Okay.
So throughout all of middle school, all of high school, I'm drawing houses. I wanted to be an architect from pretty much the time I could decide what my career was.
Okay.
Took a bunch of drafting classes, art classes, and graphic design classes in high school. I visited Georgia Tech's campus my junior year, hated it.
Okay.
Realized I'm a Georgia fan. I've always been a Georgia fan. I'm just going to go to
Dogs.
Georgia,
Okay.
figure it out.
Okay.
Got into Georgia, was in the finance program, and then after a couple of years of doing that, I just decided, I don't think I want to go into investment banking or any sort of just behind the desk finance type of stuff.
And that's a very different world from being a creative and being an architect, even from like
Right.
your first passion
Right.
draw, right?
Yeah, and so I just wanted to figure out how I could, create something instead of just crunching numbers.
Okay.
And I discovered that UGA had a real estate program, and it was a very small program. I think only 100 kids graduate per year from it. Transferred into that my senior year, took a ton of courses in order to graduate on time,
Wow.
and landed at South City Partners.
Okay.
Right after that.
Do you ever regret that you didn't become an architect?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You're so
No,
architecture and design adjacent. You're around it all day.
Yeah, I see the work that they do,
Uh-huh.
and I've done the drafting, and I know that, the first 10 years of your career as an architect are pretty tough.
It's pretty
Yeah,
crushing.
you're on behind CAD,
Yeah.
behind a desk, and what I wanted to do is draw the pretty houses and stuff, and I realized very quickly after doing all these drafting courses that it's all just computer nowadays.
Right.
So
I do wish that there was more of a blend with studying architecture and design and the financial sort of business piece
yeah.
to it. They're very separate worlds, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, here's the creative part and this is how you draw the things and design the things, but then
Yep.
nobody really teaches you, how to monetize that, manage that, budget that. They are just
Yeah.
crazy different worlds. So you were
Right.
kind of, maybe thought you were going to go in one direction, went another direction. Was it
Yeah.
a great time at UGA? You interned
Awesome.
while you were still in school,
So
or you had graduated?
because I had transferred into real estate
Right.
after the summer between junior and senior year, I
Okay.
really didn't have much of an opportunity to intern.
Okay.
So I called around everyone that I knew, any contact I could make,
Okay.
Went to my real estate professors trying to get contacts, and ended up calling Mark Randall, set up a lunch. Lunch fell apart, set up another lunch fell apart. We ended up meeting on the third time.
Okay.
Going into Atlanta
That's
from Athens.
persistency. Okay.
Yeah, and he sat down and went to Houston's right over by our office, and he offered me an internship for Christmas between fall and spring semester. So it was
Okay.
11 days.
Okay.
I worked with Mark, John, and Charles.
Okay.
South City was 3 people at the time.
Wow.
And we had a ton of deals going. I think there were 3 or 4 deals in production or pre-development, and we were slammed. So
Were you hooked at that point? We
that
did
was
the
awesome.
internship, and
I
you
mean,
just
I loved it. I loved it.
And
then-
like sight unseen, it's like this lunch, and he offers you an internship, and
yeah,
that was it.
I mean, interns, you can, if they're willing to work, they
It's a
want to
test.
learn. Yeah, like you can go into just about any industry as long as you're willing to put in the work to do that and learn from everyone.
Very,
So,
very cool. So for our listeners, maybe some of our younger listeners who
Mm-hmm.
are maybe still in school, have, maybe said that they want to be in development or are, sort of weighing up what their options are. Is this a cold call to Mark Randall to get this lunch? Was it networking through people you knew? How do you do that when you're a
I
young
grew
person
up-
to get lunch with Mark Randall?
So Mark, his home growing up was behind mine. So I grew up with Noah.
Okay.
So Noah and I grew up as friends.
Okay.
We were friends all through high school. He went to Alabama. I went to Georgia. We went our separate ways. But that was still the connection. It was a family friend. It was a neighborhood friend. And that definitely helps. So, I'm sure if it wasn't Mark that I got an internship with, he would push me on to his friends. And
Right.
I know I've seen Mark and both Mark and John do that over the years. If we don't have an opening, they're doing everything they can to help push them along into the right avenue.
Which is
So,
amazing when you have
it's-
mentors that you're working under, even, we're right out of school.
Yeah.
To be able to have somebody who's going to show you the way, take the time to go to lunch with you. I'm sure he was very busy at the time.
Yeah.
It is about networking. Do you think that the advice to younger college kids or who, we're trying to figure out where we're interning, it's really just make those calls, ask. The worst
Yeah.
thing that you can hear is no.
Exactly.
And again, if that person can't have lunch, then maybe it's somebody that they know that can hook you up with that.
Right.
Okay, so we go to lunch with Mark, and we intern, we're hooked. I want to work here, graduate from UGA. And then what? Tell us what the history is there.
I mean, so at the time we only had a couple construction guys. I was the lowest man on the totem pole with a couple new coworkers, and then Mark and John running the whole show. And they kind of just threw me in the deep end.
Baptism
seriously.
by fire.
Yeah, I mean, there was just very little structure at the time, and there were a couple guys running around doing some great deals, and it was very hands-on. Because there was less structure, it allowed you to see the process from the very start to the very end, and be just uber involved. I mean, we're not compartmentalized like a lot of companies where they've got an acquisitions guy, and then they've got the developer, and they've got the operations person and the salesperson. We're doing all of it, and so we're just intimately involved with every step.
Is it still that way?
Yeah.
And do you feel like there's benefit in that people can wear different hats and that everybody's sort of...
Yeah, I mean, we're set up to learn and really be able to run a shop at this point as individual developers.
And you've been with South City how long?
10 years.
10 years. And tell our listeners, what title are you carrying? What are you now 10 years later from lunch with Mark Randall to?
VP of Development.
Okay.
And that's gone from kind of a associate position to an assistant developer to a developer to a VP of Development. I don't know where that goes from here.
I was about to say, what's next to you?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see what the future holds. But
so what would be your advice to somebody who's sitting at UGA right now or another college and studying and wants to get into development? Maybe let me ask the question differently. Like, what's the coolest thing that you've gotten to experience where you would say to a young person, this is what is awesome about being in development? And then on the flip side of that, what's something that keeps you up at night where you wish someone would have told you that right before you had lunch with Mark Randall?
So I think they're both almost the same answer.
Okay.
Because as a developer, John says this all the time, is there's 1,000 reasons why something won't get done. There's only one reason why it will get done. And it's because you're pushing it. You're the person, you're the impetus behind everything. So when it comes to a lot of these multifamily properties that we're developing now, you go into a piece of land that's not zoned multi. Yeah. You've got a lot of cities that are against it, take convincing, and the economics are behind it, and the need for it is there. But you have to go in and sell and pitch and figure out what fits best. Yeah. What the that resident base in the area and demographics require for that property. And so I don't know if that's really answering your question, but that's my favorite part about the business. And that's what I enjoy the most, is figuring out what goes there, how to get it there, how to get it financed. There's just so much,
there's so much work that goes into it.
There's so much that goes into it.
That if you haven't seen it all the way through the process,
you don't fully understand it.
Somebody buys land, and then there's some money put into it, and then somebody hires an architect and a designer and landscape, and then it just magically.
But that's also the most difficult part of the job too. That's the thing that you lose sleep over, is because you're spending a lot of money and a lot of time. Yeah. And
do they always pan out?
No, absolutely not.
What do you think is the ratio of what works out and what doesn't work out? Is there an expectation
I'd
there?
say,
or is it different per market? Because we all know that's
it's
cyclical.
Different per market. We've gone into a handful of deals, going into a rezoning, and it working out perfectly. Yeah. And then we've gone into rezonings where we think we're gonna get it. Yeah. And then it ends up falling through, the city council member that says he was going to approve it doesn't approve it, and so his friends don't.
Years, right?
Yeah,
to having a project come to
Oslo, down in Fairburn. Yep. Prior to that, we did the Dillon, which used to be Croft House Fairburn. Right. And prior to that, we did Solstice. Yes. So we were the first developer in Fairburn since 2001. Really one of the first developments south of 20. And it served that whole South Atlanta area and the airport, New Pinewood Studios, which is now Trilith, just great development. Google had just moved in next door. The city
you guys saw opportunity there.
Yeah,
right?
and so the city was very excited to have us
Okay.
at Solstice. Had that zoned, built the deal,
Yeah.
sold it, did great. Did Croft House
Yep.
down the street at Harris Road. And then a year later, we go to rezone Oslo, and we got rejected as zoning.
It's like, wait, what's going on?
We were like, well, wait, we've done 2 great deals here.
Yeah.
You're now telling us you don't want this.
Right.
And, you know, the people in the city of Fairburn wanted a grocery store. And that land had been for sale for a grocery store for a long time. And a lot of times its highest and best use
Right.
is what the land should be used for.
Well, and that was going to be my next question, is from somebody who is maybe not in the industry, or maybe someone who's sitting in the part of the process like us as designers.
Mm-hmm.
How does a development team pick a site? You guys are sitting around and we're deciding where we're going to build, next.
Throw darts.
Right. Yeah. Like, I wonder, I'm like, how, sometimes even you guys come to us with a location. It's like, this is cool. We start to research. So like, okay, we get it.
Right.
But what does that look like on the front end? How are we picking sites? Is there a secret formula? Is there things that you have to go through with a checklist? Is it just years of experience of like, this could work or couldn't work?
I think there's probably some groups that have a checklist.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of the bigger groups that just kind of go where it's working at the time.
Yeah.
And as a smaller company, I mean, we're a much smaller, more nimble group.
Yeah,
we try to
such
figure out
flexibility.
where the next pockets are.
Okay.
And we've been successful doing so. But it's really figuring out, I mean, for say Fairburn as an example, and I say that because I'm on my 3rd project there.
Yeah.
Is we looked
Which
at that
is really
market.
cool, by the way, to be able
Thank
to really
you.
sculpt a community and to
Yeah.
have that much impact and to continue not just one, but building on your presence there is really cool.
It's been
I
great.
know that's not everybody's strategy. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's like, here, okay, great, we're in that area and let's move to the next one. So
It's
really
worked
cool to
out
be able
for
to
us, and
develop that.
maybe people have just seen that South City kind of has Fairburn.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
You put a dart there.
Yeah, we planted a flag. So that one in particular, back in 2016, we looked and said, hey, they're getting decent rents down here.
Yeah.
The product is 15 years old at this point.
Yeah.
So we think we can build something that's Class A, brand new, and piggyback off of those rents plus, 15, 20%.
Yeah.
And we'll capture all the renters that we need. And it worked out. And then we were just able to, continue on that train.
So kind of looping back to what we're talking about in our core value here at Banko, it's this innovation piece. And that it can be kind of a buzzwordy, what does that mean? The outside the box, kind of also cliche, but it's really just, trying to be a step ahead of what is going on, thinking a little bit differently. Yeah. We do feel like you all are doing that and how you're approaching your deals. So anybody can drive down the road and see that multifamily is developing all over the place. There's, it's even been joked about, like, how much more can we build? Do we really need it? Yeah. And so we feel at our portfolio that South City is doing things differently and ahead of the curve on how you guys approach things. But if it's design, if it's the land itself, the location, if it's your strategy and how you're, sculpting rents and things like that, right. What sets a job apart from any other property that's, on the road? Because there's a lot of them, and we've got to stay ahead of it, and we've got to stay current, and we have to think, what is going to be the next best thing? How do we do that? What sets projects apart?
It is difficult because there are so many.
Yeah.
And it is multifamily, and you're building within a box.
Right.
You've got to stay within certain parameters, and
we feel that.
Yeah. No, I mean,
here's the box design
we feel it. We get the contractor's pricing is pushing the box this way, and the city's pushing the box this way, and we've got to stay within a certain
those
parameter.
Confines, boundaries.
I think with interiors and design in particular, we like to stay on trend or ahead, figure out, because multi is a little bit behind single family.
Sure.
As far as interior finishes, and they also take a little bit longer to taper off.
They do.
So, I think we've seen that with some of our product where, there's a trend in single family, and we go, oh, let's start cranking that out in our multi, and then the trends start to change, and we try to stay on trend with that. Whereas some of the larger groups or other developers, they're stamping out product.
They're just pumping it, yeah.
So it doesn't change as rapidly as we do.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing, is just offering something that when people walk into the leasing space and the club room and the fitness center, they're feeling like they say, I could live here.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, this is nice.
Right.
There's a difference between walking into a boutique hotel and a brand new Marriott. Like,
Right.
the brand new Marriott's nice.
Yeah.
It feels good, but you don't walk in and go, oh, I could live here forever.
Right. There's a connection to
there's a difference.
a space that should be there. And I don't think that, if you ask someone, why does it feel good? They might say, I don't know. It's just, it feels good. It feels right. There's a vibe. I have connectivity to the space.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying too, with connection to design in general and with residential, we've always designed very res-commercially here. So we want to pull inspiration from those residential moments, but we want it to act and be able to sort of wear on a commercial standpoint. So totally get that. We think what you all are doing too, it's not just stamping out, even from an architectural standpoint. Like, there is an allure to what you all are doing from the streetscape.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I can't believe they're doing that in multifamily. So we're thrilled to be a part of that, because again, you've got to, if you're one on the street and there's three others, it's like, you even driving by, it's like, well, let me go tour that, to get folks to even come in so that they have connectivity to the space.
Well, I think you can look at each individual market and say, oh, this needs red brick. This needs stone.
Right.
This needs painted brick.
Right.
And you can't put painted brick everywhere.
Right.
You can, and it'll look nice. It'll look fine.
Right.
But there's something that speaks to each individual market.
Sure.
And honestly, every piece of land just requires something different.
Sure. I mean, you've got to you've got those confines, right?
And that's if you've got a vision for what goes there and how it fits.
Well, and we've proven that with you all too. We have the same footprint with some of our deals, right? But we've dressed them differently. We've tried to be creative about what that looks like. So hopefully our common user or someone who's going in for a tour isn't going to say, this is exactly like the building that they just built over here. We've been able to be innovative in how we've dressed that space. So I think you all are doing that really well.
Thank you. So are y'all.
All right. So, like, any advice to someone who's coming into development that you wish that you would have had when you were at UGA? Something that you could sort of leave to the next gen?
It's a good question. I think that advice that I said earlier, that there's 1,000 reasons why something doesn't happen and only one reason why it does. I mean, that pertains to everything. That pertains to getting the job. That pertains to getting the zoning. That pertains to, getting your addresses approved with USPS, because that process is difficult. So
there's got to be passion behind it, right?
Yeah,
do you love what you do?
I love what I do. Yeah.
If you weren't doing what you were doing, can you see yourself doing anything else?
Ooh. I can.
But you don't want to?
I don't want to, no.
Yeah.
No,
So what does 10-year Sean look like, 10 years out?
10 years Sean. Hopefully running a shop.
Okay.
Is the goal. Whether it's me owning the shop or me running the shop for a larger company or for South City growing. I would love to, figure out the next stage and how this gets bigger and goes and does other things.
I love that. I love that. So we talked about sort of the start of how you got into all of this, and you're loving what you're doing. You love who you're working with.
Yep.
Do you feel like you're just living the dream? You kind of figured out early in life what you wanted to do, and you got in with a great company.
I really do.
And it's unique that you've been in one spot. You talk to a lot of, I'm not going to pull the generation card, but it is, I think, differently.
Every 3 years, you jump companies.
1 year, 2 years, 3 years that
up.
people are jumping. So, maybe let's talk about that. What there's a benefit there in being with a company and growing with a company and understanding their original vision. I mean, you were employee 4? Is that right?
I mean, when I interned, I was number 4. When I ended up coming in, there were a couple other guys that joined with me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was 7 of us when I started.
Which is crazy cool to be with a company and be able to grow like that. So I think there's benefit in that to understand the vision, grow with that company, help them go and push the limits. So I don't know, talk about that. What do you think the benefits of that is? And
there's definitely benefits, and there's, like you said, there's a downside.
What's the downside of it?
Well, you probably get paid a little bit less. You probably don't move up as fast as if you were to go, 2 years at your first job,
Sure.
and then 4 years at your next job, and 3 years at your next job. A lot of times when you move companies, you jump up.
Sure.
And it's faster. Who knows if it's better? You probably don't learn as much.
Right. But it depends on what your currency is too. So we talk about that. There's physical monetary currency, which when someone says currency, you're like, oh, how much you're paid.
Yeah.
But there's currency too in, do you trust and love who you work with?
Right.
Do you feel like you have accountability and autonomy?
And that is what I have.
That's a different currency.
At South City Partners, we have full autonomy. We get stuff done if we need to be there until 9 p.m. working on something.
But is somebody asking you to do that, or are you doing that?
No, that's also being in a small company, being there for a long time. There's a lot of trust built there, and it's a lot of friendships, and everyone is working in the same direction to get these deals done.
Right.
So, as long as your work is getting done and everything is going smoothly, then you have the autonomy to, live your life and work and go on vacations and do your thing. And it's been great.
Is it just as exciting now in your career to walk into a finished product, to walk into the building? We've been working on it for years. You were probably working on it for years before we were working on it. Right. So is the feeling and the passion different now, 10 years out of school, than it was the very first time that you walked into a building or put a deal together or really took ownership of something as baby Sean?
I think it is different. I don't want to say it's less passionate. I think it's less excited. So earlier on,
do you become dead inside? No, just kidding.
Right. Yes, no feeling whatsoever.
Yeah, right. It's the late nights.
No, I mean it's like you become a little bit numb to turning over buildings and accepting things, and walking into a clubhouse for the first time. Isn't the same,
right?
As it was when I first started. You walked in, you're like, oh my gosh, I've been working on this for a year.
Yeah.
This is awesome. These finishes are great.
But there's also probably other things in the process that you get lit about now that you maybe didn't early on in your career. So does that excitement shift?
Yeah, I mean, you just start to hone in and perfect. You become a little bit of a perfectionist, and you see what needs to be done and what wasn't done right. And it doesn't mean your passion is less.
Right.
It's maybe even more passionate about it. You start to see things that should have been done differently, or could have been done differently, or should have been faster, or whatever. So you just see it through a different lens a little bit.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Very cool. Okay, so if somebody says to you, you're at a dinner party, you're hanging out with your lovely wife, and you all are, chatting with folks at a dinner party, and someone says, "Hi, nice to meet you." You introduce yourself, you tell them what you do for a living, and they say, "What does that mean? What do you? What is your?
Say,
what is
my
your?
mom's a real estate agent." Okay. Seriously.
That's a great question, though. What is shit people say to you that you wish they wouldn't say?
Yeah.
Everyone's a real estate agent, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've introduced yourself and what you do for a living. Mm-hmm. What does day-to-day look like? So if this were, maybe talking to a younger generation or folks who are design adjacent, architecture adjacent, and are just really curious, what is it like to be in that part of the process and development? What do you do all day?
Well, so as a developer, we are not really producing anything. All we're doing is managing. We're the middleman. I mean, we have an equity partner for the money. We've got a bank for the money. We've got y'all for interiors. Mm-hmm. We've got an architect for architecture, engineer, contractor building it, a manager managing it. And so we are the ones piecing all those things together.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our day is just coordinating people, making sure that if there's a ball rolling, it stays rolling and it gets from one hand to the next.
Yeah. So are you in the people business or in the product business?
No, we're definitely in the people business.
It's orchestrating a team.
It is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. So, the product that we produce is underwriting and financials and working, on the draws and making sure that the financials are correct.
Right.
And those are the things that we do for our investors and for the bank, and then also for ourselves. But, from a work standpoint, it's a lot of just people coordinating and orchestrating.
Yeah. But most businesses are. And I think from the creative side of the process, I was kidding myself even when I was in school, because I thought I'm going to come out, I'm going to work for a firm. I do think on some level, even as a baby Melissa, I thought I would, have a shop someday of my own. I didn't think that I needed to understand the financial component, the development component, the acquisition component,
Right.
because it was just like, why would I need to know those things? But when you have orchestrated or curated a team, I think it's important that each person understands the other person's portion of it.
Yeah.
And they don't teach you that in art school. They don't teach you how deals are put together or who all on the team is doing what. I mean, literally like the first couple of years that I was in, out in the real world, I was Googling all the things. I would hear acronyms. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. And I'm looking it up to learn how to be a better designer, because
that happens to a lot of people.
Right. So you're like, sure, you're nodding and I'm like doing the thing and you're like, underneath, like looking up what things are, because that's just not part of our vernacular as a creative team. Right. So understanding all the work that you all do to put those teams together is crazy good. And I think it makes us better designers because we understand, sort of what you do have to do on the front end. So in talking about being ahead of the curve or trying to think innovatively, this has been a wild ride the last, I'm going to say 2 years.
Yeah.
And Banko has been in existence and has been practicing for 10 years. So we are as old as you would sound, as your career. And every year has been like crazy different. So anytime anybody talks about cycle, I'm like, what does that mean? Because it's just been so crazy. But certainly the last couple of years, what are you all doing, and what is South City's strategy in how to be nimble, to be flexible, to be ahead of the curve, to be prepared, and in navigating what this really insane new build market looks like? Right. So what does that look like?
So for the past year, it's been difficult, as you know. I know. And so, right now we're having to find. Over the past 5 years, a lot of groups saw developers making a bunch of money and it looked easy. Yeah. So there were a lot of guys going out there, and guys and girls going out there and just putting apartments where they could, and they didn't have to be good. They didn't have to be innovative. They didn't have to speak to that location.
And there was a lot of newbies in the space.
Yeah.
Because we saw it too.
And it worked. They built them. They leased them up. They sold them. They made money. And nowadays you can't do that.
Right.
So you've got to find the right piece of land. You've got to find the right partners. You've got to have the right finishes and everything in order to get these jobs done. And I think we're having to get flexible in the sense that multifamily land is not available anymore.
Right.
And so we're partnering with single family home builders and taking down a big piece of land and doing a mixed use deal where there's a little retail portion and there's single family and townhomes. And, we're looking at even some of the more neglected pieces of property around Metro Atlanta that maybe we thought we couldn't build on before. Okay. And we're figuring out how to do more efficient projects.
Is renovation, refresh, acquisition, is that a part of the narrative right now?
We've looked at that. We've looked at office because obviously there's a huge opportunity. Somebody's got to
convert these
and
sort of mid.
It's possible, but it's very expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, with construction costs right now, it's hard to get done. I'm sure there's people doing it.
Right.
I personally think there's a totally different way to do office reno, but I think there's definitely an opportunity there, and we're having to get creative with where these go. We're having to find underused pieces of land in order to get them rezoned, right? But it also has to be a good location.
And they're taking longer, right? Like this is a tighter strategy.
Way longer. Yeah. It's way more expensive to get done nowadays. I mean, you're having to spend a ton of money before.
Sure.
You even...
And then you cut my FF&E budget. That's what happens.
Exactly.
That's what happens, Sean, every time.
Yeah. We ask you, can we pay you 10 days later?
Do we need floors?
Right. Yeah.
How important is carpet?
Are you okay with carpet in the kitchen? Yeah.
So that's what we love about you all, is that you allow us to also be a part of that conversation. So I think all companies, anybody that's adjacent to real estate and development right now, is just having to stay really creative.
Well, and I think, something that y'all do that is super innovative and can help with this cycle is, the procurement process of all the building materials, the tile and the floors and whatever it might be. countertops.
Yeah.
I don't know how far y'all can go, but I know that tile and floors are a good way to save a little bit of money across 300,000 square feet.
We can be as innovative as we
Yeah.
think is awesome, but we need really great partners like you
Right.
that also see the value in it, because a great idea is just a great idea unless you've got somebody else who's
Yep.
going to help you sort of build upon that. So I appreciate you saying that,
Yeah.
because, you know, it is maybe bringing in things or providing services that you know, isn't standard for a design group
Yeah.
to do that, but to link up with a group like you all who are also having those conversations. And you all are so great about being communicative. You know, business is not always easy. You know, B2B is not always easy. And you are in the people business. You mentioned that earlier, and curating these teams, and you're sort of you've built this orchestra, and it's getting everybody to communicate with each other, which is really where it sings.
Right.
Because, yeah, I mean, a building is a building, but it's really the people behind it and the strategy behind it. And I think you guys are just kicking ass doing it, and we're just really honored to be a part of it. So
Thank you. We appreciate y'all being a part of it. I mean, y'all have helped make what our projects are.
I mean, we're
you know?
like winning awards and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
know.
Like kind of a big deal.
I know. Some really pretty stuff out there. I mean, it's
love
just you walk into our leasing offices and it's different.
It is.
You walk into our units and they're a little bit different.
Yeah.
I get that from friends all the time in the industry.
Yeah.
They walk through our projects and
I love
it
to
shows
hear that.
differently.
I love to hear
it. It just does.
I had a mentor tell me really on in my design career, and she said to me, "This is really lovely, but you should always have things that are unexpected. Like that are those are the moments where people go, that feels like so good, and I don't know why. It's because it's unexpected.
Yeah.
Like if you're just doing the same thing that every other gal in design group is doing, like no one's skirt is blown up with that.
Right.
It's like think differently." Do something that's a little unexpected. That's what people remember, and we're honored to be working with you guys and alongside you.
I think
so.
y'all's y'all's ability to really hone in on all the details too.
There's a lot of them.
If we're doing black fixtures in a unit, don't leave stainless steel door hinges.
But all silver's the same, isn't it, Sean?
Right.
No.
So it's like it's just little things like that.
Yeah.
And that's a very small cost, and maybe you even get it for the same price.
Right. Well, and
And
things are
it
moving so crazy too.
Shows
You've got
so much differently.
VE. It's like, hey, you know, this not available. We still have lead time issues and all that. So it's
Yep.
like, okay, great. If you've got black fixtures and you need to pivot and you've got another metal, it's like, did you think all the way through, or are you just making all these small edits, and then we all come back and walk that property, and it's like, how did we end here?
Yeah,
How did
you're
we
like,
get
it's
here?
nice, but it's not
But
cohesive.
it's not great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in today's market, everybody's having to think differently about how to make properties remarkable, stand out. You've got a renter who's probably looking at 3, 4, or 5 properties, you know, a day. What do we do to make those most outstanding and to be memorable aside from the rest that are on the street?
Yeah, so like I talked about before, there's a difference between walking into a place that feels nice, it's clean, it's got all the right amenities, in a place that you walk in and you go, oh, I could live here. This is my dream home.
Yeah.
Is the clubhouse.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think it starts with that, and then
Okay.
it's also you move into property management, and there's a difference between someone just being responsive and handing out your answers that you're
Right.
asking, and someone that you become friends with
Yes.
and you want to live there because it's a community.
Right.
So it really becomes a difference of, is this a home for this person? Is this a community for this person?
Or is it just somewhere
versus
they live?
is this a place for them to live?
Yeah.
And I think that's there's 1,000 ways to create that. And we try to capture as many of those as possible.
And we believe as your design team that there's things that we can do to make it easier for those management and on-site teams to do that.
Right.
I think that happiness is a sense of belonging. And so anything that we can do through design is pretty impactful and powerful to do that. So what can we do to make it easier for programs to happen? Okay, just if you were to answer this really quickly, what is more important at a community, at a property? Is it the amenities or how badass the units are? If you had to pick one.
Ooh.
That's hard, right?
It is hard because I do feel like the amenities, they are a showpiece.
Sure.
And It's a wow factor.
And there's like a race to be bigger, better, badder at all these properties.
There's this whole Instagrammable factor
Yes,
as well.
we hear that often.
Yeah, you want it to be something that people get their picture right there, and they feel like, oh, this is really cool.
And they get to claim it.
I would work here.
Yeah.
But in reality, you've got 300 residents in a, give or take, in a property, and you're not having 300 people really, really use
your
the
amenities.
clubhouse.
Yeah.
And so I personally think that the interiors of the units, I like to focus a lot of energy and effort on those to make people feel like that's also their home.
Right.
But the clubhouse and leasing is absolutely like the jewel of the property.
Yeah.
It needs to be a wow factor, and there needs to be the Instagrammable moments, and there needs to be just a feeling that this is something special and this is my dream house.
Right. I think a lot of groups have strategized, especially as of lately, to kind of strip down what those units look like, because it's quantity, right? But we're spending a lot more time in those dwellings than we are in an amenity. So I think there needs to be more of a focus on an even spread. We can still have really great amenities. We can still have that allure with pictures online so that someone's actually coming in for a tour, but we're living in that unit.
You can create a really good unit. It just takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You can create something that's really special without spending just a ton of money.
Thoughtful, I think, is a great way to describe
it. It just needs to be thoughtful.
Yeah.
You got to do something different and catch people's attention and make them feel like this is something
they can be proud of.
Yeah, exactly.
Better living for everybody. Love it. Sean, a guest has left you a question, another guest here in the season. So I'm going to ask you this question that was left for you. You ready?
Okay, sure.
Okay, what is the most innovative, wackiest, most unique Halloween costume you have ever rocked in your life?
That's a hard question.
Okay. Do you like Halloween? Is this a fun holiday?
I've never been a huge Halloween person until I met my wife.
Okay, then you do the
and
couple ones?
we've gone all out.
Okay.
So
I feel like we're going to need pictures of this. But what's the craziest one?
I think the best one, I don't know if it's craziest.
Okay.
The best one is probably Napoleon Dynamite and Kip.
Okay.
So I was Kip.
Okay.
And my wife was Napoleon Dynamite. And it was spot on.
Okay.
We were in character all night.
Amazing.
Went from 5 p.m. till about 1 a.m.
What's my quesadilla?
Yeah, seriously. It was kind of weird because we were brothers and also married, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yes, do need to see pictures of that. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was awesome having you on and talking all things real estate development, interior design, and architecture. We just really enjoyed chatting, so thanks for coming and hanging out.
Thank you.
That's the Banko Buzz.